It really did feel like this season was full of issues, and it felt like all season tensions were building because of the collective performance of the entire team. And it would be in week 10 when these tensions would come to a head. And unfortunately, it came at the expense of a player that was already being maligned by the fan base because of a few reasons. But week 10 would also expose a much bigger problem, and one that, in my opinion, dictated the rest of the season for the worst. Because in one singular moment of frustration, to the fan base at least, the team didn't look like it was ever going to recover from it. I realize the timing of this episode is kind of funny, given that a certain kicker just won the game for the team after kicking a career-high 59-yard field goal, but at the same time, this episode really isn't about Jake Moody or even the special team unit as a whole. But since I will be talking about the incident that happened during the Bucs game, and that directly involved Moody, I can't not talk about him. Now, I posted episode 1 of this series all the way back in January. And while most of these episodes could be considered standalone, there was one moment in the first episode that I intentionally put in there because I knew eventually I'd come back to it. This would make Suckup the first Mr. Irrelevant to play in and win a Super Bowl as an NFL starter. With all due respect though, he was a kicker. Now, don't get me wrong, kickers are very important to a football team. Now again, I'm not going to sit here and trash Jake Moody. We all know the things that occurred in 2023 in various games, and we all know what happened in 2024. But I do want to put some context on what we're going to discuss. So let's talk about Moody's injury first. Last episode, I mentioned that in week 5, Moody was injured when the special teams unit couldn't stop a kick return, and Moody ended up trying to make the stop, which, to his credit, he was successful in doing, but he ended up suffering a high ankle sprain as a result. Now, up until that point, Moody had been relatively solid for each of those games, and if you go back to week 1, he put up more points in the entire offense when he went 6 for 6 for 18 points. He would be out until week 10, where he would return from the game against who else but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, we all know how I feel about the team in relation to Brock, so we don't need to rehash that here. The trouble started at the end of the first half when Moody missed a 49-yard field goal attempt. Now, during the fourth quarter, he would miss 2 more, and it was after the third miss when the camera caught something that occurred on the Niners sideline that we hadn't seen before, or at least I had never seen before.
Deebo Samuel. Oh.
Deebo, he doesn't want to hear that.
Understandably, the fans were very much divided. Some would side with Deebo because they were just as frustrated with Moody because had he made that kick, the Niners would have taken a much bigger lead. Others would call for Deebo to be reprimanded because he put his hands on another player during a game. It was made worse by the fact that Deebo was a captain. Also, the fact that for many fans, Deebo really had no right to complain about another player's performance, given the fact that up until that point, Deebo hadn't made a significant impact on the team as a whole. Now, I will point out that all of this did occur after Deebo was hospitalized with pneumonia, but what occurred on the sideline was, for lack of a better term, the straw that broke the camel's back. The spotlight was centered directly on Samuel. Every catch, every drop, every mistake was being called out. But more than that, it felt like the entire mood of the team had changed, at least in my opinion. So let's bring it back to Brock for a bit. If you remember, episode 4 was called Connections, and in that episode, I mentioned Purdy's connections with his receivers. In 2022 and 2023, Purdy had developed a great chemistry with Deebo. In fact, some of Purdy's most outstanding plays were made to Deebo. In 2024, however, that connection just didn't seem to be there, or at least it wasn't as prevalent as it was in 23, and it didn't improve after week 10. In fact, back in December, Deebo would put out a tweet claiming that he wasn't struggling, he just wasn't getting the ball. Now, given everything that I've talked about in this series and how Brock likes to spread the ball around, some took that as a direct shot at both Brock and Kyle Shanahan. What made it worse was that this was done after the Niners had won in convincing fashion against the Bears. And then the second Rams game happened. To say that was an ugly game would be a major understatement. Neither quarterback did well, and yes, I'm not going to sit here and say Brock was good, because he wasn't. Neither him nor Stafford had a touchdown, and unfortunately, Purdy did have that interception late in the fourth. But that's not what people were really talking about. It was Deebo. A week after he sent out that message about not getting the ball, he was targeted 7 times throughout the game and only caught 3 passes. Honestly though, out of the 4 passes that were incomplete, there's only one that fans remember, and that's the pass that he dropped that most likely would have resulted in the only touchdown in the game. And while some of the other drops that have occurred since Brock was drafted could be attributed to a less than ideal pass, there's no way that anyone could have criticized this one. It was perfect, and it was dropped. Whether or not that potential win could have saved the team's season or not, one thing was very clear. It really did appear that Deebo's days with the team were over. Many fans were upset at the fact that he wanted to be targeted more, and then when it felt like the team was forcing the ball to him, he couldn't hold on to it. Fans were calling for him to be traded, and after the season was finally over, he was. This iteration of the team was done. It was over. 6-11. The team was finished. Many players would end up leaving for various reasons. Deebo would be traded. And that was that. Now, we look to the future. New rookies, new players, new coaches, new expectations. Some players got paid while others began the grueling process of healing their injuries. The next time we see this team in the regular season, things are going to be different. Some familiar faces do remain: Fred Warner, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, CMC, and a few others. And right smack in the middle is the reason why you're here watching this video. QB1, the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy. We've got one more episode to go, the season 3 finale of Irrelevant. And I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate this team and this quarterback than by giving you my personal top 15 plays of the past 3 seasons. So stay tuned.